A shallow 6.2 magnitude earthquake struck a county in Gansu Province. The quake rippled through neighboring Qinghai Province. Local officials said 131 people were killed and nearly 15,000 houses collapsed. But within 15 hours, it was announced that the rescue was over and that rescue teams from out of town had been told to stand down. Generally, after an earthquake, there are at least 24 hours of golden rescue time. On November 4, 2023, a 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck western Nepal, and the search and rescue work ended 36 hours after the quake. So why did the earthquake in China end in such a hurry? Shouldn't more people be rescued? The more the better. In this episode, we'll look at what the Beijing government is trying to cover up behind the scenes of this earthquake. The quake was officially reported by the Chinese authorities as having a magnitude of 6.2 on the Richter scale, but the U.S. Geological Survey said it detected a magnitude of 5.9 on the Richter scale. As of December 20, 2023, official sources in China reported that the quake had killed at least 131 people in Gansu, injured 782, collapsed nearly 15,000 dwellings, damaged more than 200,000 buildings, and affected more than 140,000 people. In Qinghai Province, 18 people were killed, 198 were injured, and 16 were missing. As for the so-called official death toll of 100-plus people, no one is likely to believe it. The actual number of casualties is surely to be far higher. On the other hand, the fact that the official authorities have already admitted that more than 100 people died in such a short period of time further indicates that the disaster must be catastrophic. What's strange is that the number of missing people isn't announced. Most probably, the number is huge. Around noon on December 20th, Gansu provincial officials made an announcement that by 3 p.m. on December 19th, rescue work had basically ended, and the focus of work would shift to treating the injured and resettling the affected people. It was only 15 hours from the time the earthquake struck. The announcement also stated that the participation of social emergency response forces in the first phase of search and rescue operations has ended, and that the social emergency response forces that mainly perform search and rescue tasks at the scene are requested to report to the on-site coordination mechanism and then leave in an orderly manner. In the next step, the Disaster Relief Command Center will continue the various work in our disaster relief efforts. As of 3 p.m. yesterday, the rescue operation has more or less ended. Our priority will shift to treating the injured and making arrangements for the affected people to ensure the safety of their lives and property. This official announcement of ending the rescue at 3 p.m. on December 19th came so suddenly that the rescue teams in other parts of the country didn't seem to expect it. Many Chinese media also reported on December 20th that a China Eastern Airlines flight took off from Shanghai Hongqiao International Airport at 21:55 p.m. on December 19th. At 1:20 a.m. on December 20th, 3 rescue teams with 21 people arrived at Zhangquan Airport in Lanzhou. In other words, these rescue teams that have been rushing to Gansu can now return without doing anything. Rescue teams that showed up a little later in the day didn't have to work for more than a few hours before calling it a day. For example, People's Daily reported that the local Gangnan detachment of armed police went to the rescue site from its premises only at 9 a.m., 9 hours after the quake, with more than 210 armed police and 15 vehicles. According to the official statement, the rescue work was basically finished at 3 p.m. In other words, these armed police had actually participated in the rescue work for only 5 hours. Did the rescue teams realize that the on-site situation wasn't bad? Of course not. Here is a landslide as a result of the earthquake that buried half of the village. Locals said many villagers were buried in the mudslide. Is it because the rescue force is large in size and with enough people at work, all the searches and rescues have been done quickly? According to the CCP official media Guangming Daily, the scale of the rescue teams sent by the CCP as of December 19th included a total of 2,042 people, 381 vehicles, and 37 rescue dogs, which had been dispatched by the State Comprehensive Firefighting and Rescue Teams. However, the number of rescued people was only 74. The military has always been the mainstay of the CCP's disaster relief efforts. There are troops in the local neighborhood of the disaster area, which belongs to the armed police. In the case of a disaster like an earthquake or flood, the local government usually sends a distress signal to the armed police, who need to negotiate with the military command, and only after the military command agrees can the armed police go. This is the official process. It seems that the level of bureaucracy in each military command varies, resulting in quite a difference in the responding time of the surrounding officers and soldiers. According to the PLA Daily on December 19th, one PLA unit mobilized about 300 officers and soldiers, and another unit mobilized more than 300 people in 40-plus vehicles. It sounds like the number of troops deployed was very small, only a few hundred. And the amount of rescue supplies brought in was also surprisingly low. According to official reports, one unit brought about 50 pieces of supplies and set up 20-plus tents. Another group of 210 people and 15 vehicles were also deployed to the disaster area. However, they didn't receive the order till 9:10 p.m. on December 19th, 9 hours after the earthquake. At noon on December 19th, a department of the Western Theater Air Force dispatched a helicopter to the disaster area to survey the airspace. At around 11 a.m. on December 19th, a Yun-20 aircraft from a regiment of the Air Force of the Western Theater of Operations landed at the Zhengquan Airport in Lanzhou. Although the Chinese government has been broadcasting a lot of videos of active rescue efforts both in and out of China, on the military side of things, there were, in fact, only a few hundred soldiers, one helicopter, and one Transport 20 aircraft mobilized. We would even guess that many of these officers and soldiers didn't spend time on the actual rescue efforts, but rather heeded the director's instructions to pose at the scene for a number of media outlets to film and broadcast. The performance of the other rescue teams was also worrisome. In the official live broadcast from the hardest-hit area, the Gansu Fire Department rescuers were seen virtually with no large-scale rescue tools, and weren't seen carrying rescue devices such as life detectors. A large number of shots show that the rescuers only used their hands, shovels, and other rudimentary ways to move debris in the rubble. There are also a large number of shots showing that in the golden time to save people, the rescuers didn't work to rescue, but rather did clean up work in the disaster area, inspected the work, as well as to set up tents and so on. Here, during prime rescue time on December 19th, a group of rescuers were checking out a residential house, carrying no rescue equipment nor rescuing any stranded people. However, under the overwhelming publicity of the official media in China, the message received by the public is that this is a natural disaster and there is nothing anyone can do about it, neither can the party. I have this electric blanket and quilt now, so it's warmer. I couldn't sleep last night. There is nothing we can do. The Communist Party, the town government, can't do anything about it because it's a natural disaster. There is nothing we can do when there is a natural disaster. Why did the authorities end the rescue so soon? There are several reasons in our analysis. First, the CCP wants to downplay the tragedy. We have seen some internal statements from Chinese officials that they are worried about too much hype about the earthquake. Gansu and Qinghai provinces are both known to be ethnic minority autonomous regions, so the earthquake involves China's ethnic minorities, a sensitive issue to begin with. This makes officials even more nervous. For local officials, ensuring so-called social stability is the first priority. Any factor that interferes with the stability may affect the career of local officials. So, if the rescue work is prolonged, it's likely that the death toll of more than 100 people will be hard to convince people. So, it would be better to end the operation as soon as possible and let the news of the earthquake disappear from the public eye as soon as possible. We haven't gotten any real rescue yet, one victim in a village told overseas Chinese language media. He described, "Where we are, the houses are now uninhabitable. We've set up tents in front of our homes, built a fire, and have children and old people sit in front to stay warm. The damage in our village isn't as bad. The houses are all cracked, but they haven't collapsed. There's one village up there along with another village that had it much worse."
当时我爸妈是从这底下拉出来的，当时也不知道从咋拉出来的，反正就有地方就跑，从这儿拉出来，我妹就从这儿。马上就没电了，那个小混混什么都没有了，他有点着急了，就身上就压了。我说喊我儿子就名字叫上了，结果什么反应都没有。还有我女儿推到这边，我什么都没穿，跑到那边进去，我喊了我女儿。 我女儿有声音了，我就，你看得着妈妈的手吗？人家说妈妈的手抓住了，我说赶紧跑出来，我们两口子就往了，我的女儿就挖出来了，还有我的爸爸住在那边，已经出来了，我们全家人没事了，一房子就全都没有了嘛。
Earthquakes are relatively common on the edge of the Tibetan Plateau, and there's nothing particular about them from a seismic perspective. On the morning of December 19, 2023, official experts said that the earthquake in Gansu was an independent earthquake. That is, a new earthquake that was also a main shock plus aftershock type earthquake. This earthquake occurred on the Mount Lajishan fault zone and was a thrust rupture earthquake. Within 200 kilometers of the epicenter of this earthquake, there have been 3 earthquakes of magnitude 6 or above since 1900. As a rule, a 6.2 magnitude quake is not too strong. The US says it was only 5.9. Under normal circumstances, there shouldn't have been so many casualties. Officials said that nearly 15,000 houses collapsed. How could such an earthquake, which was not of a significant magnitude, cause the collapse of so many houses? The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, has always claimed that earthquakes can be prevented and has set a standard for buildings not to collapse in strong earthquakes. Since the Tangshan earthquake of 1976, which had a magnitude of 7.5, the Chinese government has set up requirements for buildings, and then the requirements became even more stringent after the Wenchuan earthquake of 2008, which had a magnitude of 8.3, requiring that buildings should withstand strong earthquakes. Now, the official report that about 15,000 houses have collapsed in Gansu Province shows that many of the buildings' earthquake-resistant construction has failed to meet the requirements. From December 19th to the 20th, several Gansu netizens exposed earthquake footage captured by surveillance cameras. The videos showed that the tremors were so severe that bricks fell like rain, and there was simply no time for escape. Even before announcing the end of the rescue, the Gansu Provincial Emergency Management Agency declared on December 19th that it had set up a social rescue coordination mechanism for the 1219 Linxia Jishishan earthquake, and that it does not recommend that external provincial and municipal social rescue forces go there on their own. On December 20th, Gansu officials again urged the out-of-town rescue forces already in the stricken area to leave. This is similar to what happened during the Drazhou flood in Hebei in the summer of 2023, when the authorities chased away out-of-town rescue forces. One has to suspect that the CCP is trying to cover up the devastating situation again. It's very likely that the authorities want to keep the news under wraps for fear that the scenes captured by the rescue teams on their cell phones will have an unintended negative effect. The Chinese media claim that as of June 2022, there were 1.047 billion cell phone users in China. That is, almost everyone in China has a cell phone. Coupled with the massive expansion of social media platforms like Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok, and WeChat, Chinese people are now very fond of taking photos and videos and uploading them online. No matter how hard the online police and administrators try, once the civilian rescue army arrives, the amount of videos will increase dramatically, and all the positive publicity about the earthquake could be destroyed. The worst thing is that the truth of the CCP's so-called national poverty alleviation will be exposed. It should be noted that 4 days ago, the head of the CCP went to Qinghai Province, which is also an autonomous region for ethnic minorities, for an inspection. As a result, the official Chinese media are now broadcasting the achievements of China's rural development with great fervor. They are telling the public that China's rural areas where ethnic minorities gather are beautiful, affluent, and vibrant. Thanks to the CCP, the villagers are leading the way to a better life. The earthquake in Gansu has shown the outside world that so many homes have collapsed. Many of the buildings are old and shabby, and a large part of them were made of clay. The houses are also very simple. Many of the villages look poor, as if they were still living in the 70s in China. And as early as 2020, the CCP announced that the entire nation had been lifted out of poverty. But the peasants here are living in substandard houses and are clearly in poverty. At the moment, the local temperature is around -15 degrees Celsius or 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Many victims had no warm clothes nor tents. If they have vehicles, they stay in their vehicles. If they don't have vehicles, they make fires outdoors to stay warm. Many children have caught colds as a result. Here, the earthquake victims are distributing a limited amount of coal to make a fire to keep warm.
My 2 kids sleep in other people's tent. They don't have a tent right now. They're in a tent, but they don't have pajamas. They don't have anything. Yesterday, my husband and my 2 girls stood in the yard for the whole night.
现在孩子怎么样？
How are the kids now?
They're in a neighbor's tent, and they're sleeping now. Both of them got colds.
Currently, aftershocks continue in Qinghai County, and as of 8 a.m. on December 20th, there have been 423 aftershocks, with a maximum of 4.1 magnitude. The lowest temperature for the next 10 days would be around -15 degrees Celsius or 5 degrees Fahrenheit. At present, the earthquake-stricken areas are in serious shortage of supplies. The Gansu Emergency Management WeChat public page posted a message saying that generators, heavy construction machinery, long cotton overcoats, food, thermal supplies, and feminine products are needed.
We haven't eaten anything in the past 2 days, and we haven't got any water to drink. The house is all gone, and so is the food. But at least our family is safe. I slept in my bed that night. I didn't have anything to eat yesterday, and today I'm eating the food left in the house. We had to eat outside. You can't cook inside. There's no pot. There's no bowl. There's no way to cook. The pot is buried. The bowl is buried. All you can eat is buns. There's nothing left.
The victims' voices are tightly controlled on the web. Now the government takes strict control of comments on social media platforms like Xiaohongshu, WeChat, and Weibo, and news of the devastation in the earthquake-stricken areas is basically out of sight. The CCP is still doing the so-called positive energy propaganda for the Gansu earthquake. The first item on the Weibo hot search on December 19th was the important instruction given by Xi Jinping, the head of the CCP, on the Gansu earthquake. The second item was the secretary of the Qinghai Provincial Party Committee hugging weeping victims and saying that they should believe in the party after the earthquake had killed 127 people. In addition, there was another article published by the Gansu Meteorological Bureau. It says all unofficial releases regarding the analysis and conclusion of the Qinghai earthquake are rumors. Talking about the earthquake is sad. In Red China, life is worthless compared to the pride of the party. The survivors under the rubble have only 15 hours to be heard. After 15 hours, their cries for help will no longer be allowed. In a short time, this vast expanse of rubble will be run over by bulldozers, and the so-called post-disaster reconstruction work will begin. On the party's roster, those permanently missing people aren't even counted as a number.